Last year, Mike Modano retired from the NHL after 21 years of hockey. Tonight, his date with the Hall of Fame awaits. Today on this special edition of the Donniesport'S Breaking Ice Show, the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame induction event featuring Mike Modano, whose 21 years of accomplishments are worthy of Hall of Fame status.
National Hockey League, that was unheard of when I was basically all Canadians and eventually some Europeans came in. Now it's not, and then the best hockey players were coming from cold weather areas, Minnesota, Detroit, Boston, but now there's hockey players coming from California, from Washington, D.C., all over the United States, and that's a lot of people putting in a lot of effort to grow hockey.
I think it's just over 100, 108. Some people have received the Lester Patrick Trophy over the years. Have they told you how many of them have been Canadian?
No, but they never told me that. But, I thought you had the answer.
I'll get on.
All right.
Dick, how important was Dartmouth for you in springboarding your career, both on and off the ice?
Well, Dartmouth, I don't look back at the record book because we didn't do very well during my time there as far as one loss. But one great thing about hockey is what anyone that's ever played it realizes the guys I keep up with, mostly from Dartmouth, are guys that I played on a team with. Once you're teammate and once you're in this game, it sticks with you forever. That's the great thing we've tried to do down in Washington throughout the organization is to encourage youth hockey, get more people playing it. Because again, once you start playing the game, most people fall in love with it, and you're games for life.
Do you still keep in contact with a lot of people from Dartmouth from those days?
Not a lot. The guys that I played hockey with, I keep hearing from. I heard from one this afternoon. Just read about the award. A guy that was our captain just found out. And a couple of other guys emailed me a few hours ago.
When you were building Catholic, going through the process, and it was a long process as far as dotting the I's and crossing the T's, how important was it to have those two sheets and to have the availability for kids to play?
Well, I mean, anytime you can build a rink, the more ice you can get, the better it works. And for us, it wasn't even a question. The plan from the beginning, whether it was at Kettler or anywhere else, was to go with two sheets. And when you look at it, although it's great for the Capitals, the percentage of ice time they use there throughout the years really minor compared to the percent, compared to the hours of ice time there. So youth hockey plays a lot more of those two sheets than the Capitals do.
Being in Dallas, have you looked at the model of what the Stars have done in terms of that's kind of how they have grew the game here, or building their own rinks and getting more kids?
I haven't looked at any of the facilities, but I remember talking to Jim Lights years ago and him describing to me what was going on. I think it was Dr. Pepper that was at the time, and that was part of the research we did when we were considering getting involved in doing our own rink. I think Dallas is a model for what you can do with that.
Can you talk a little bit about just the growth of the game in the Virginia area? I know that we just had this 11-5 coaching symposium there, a lot of local coaches coming up. But just in your time in D.C., what you've seen and how far it's really come?
Well, it's come a tremendous way, and again, a lot of it's because more and more rinks have been built. I forget how many rinks there were when I first started coaching down there, but maybe 4 or 5 that were within distance. Now there's many more than that, and it's still not it's not reasonable to expect that the kids playing hockey there are going to necessarily become Division I college players, or certainly not pros. And when I used to coach, I used to tell that to the parents, don't get your expectations there. When I hear them talking about getting scholarships for their kids, and all, I said it's very unlikely. Just play it because you love the game. It's something you have forever. But in fact, there have been players from there that have made the National Hockey League. Jeff Halpern, who is one example. He's been on our team twice. He was captain of our team. And I hope to see him playing for the Rangers when he's going to get back on the ice.
Well, I feel honored. It's something I was hoping for a long time. I'd be lying to you if I wasn't disappointed it hadn't happened to this point. But you look at all the people that have gone into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame and all the people that have done so much for our game. I couldn't be more happy and proud of all the people that have helped me along the way. And this is not about me, it is about my family and my friends and my teammates and all the people that have helped me along the way. So now that it's finally here, I think I'm probably more relaxed now than I was probably when I got the call from David Ogren with USA Hockey. I'm extremely honored and to go in with two guys that I know extremely well, and Mike Modano and Mr. Lamoriello. Moto and I played on a few World Championships, World Team USA's together in World Championships. And going with the greatest American forward scorer ever played in the National Hockey League. Speaks volumes, and of course Mr. Lamoriello, who I've known since 1983. At that time he was at Providence College. He was coaching at the United States Sports Festival in Colorado Springs for the tryout for Team USA for the Olympic team in 1984, and Mr. Lamoriello happened to be on the team, the East team he was coaching, and our paths crossed at that particular time. For everything he's done for college hockey and what he's done for the New Jersey Devils in the National Hockey League, couldn't be more proud to be on that line, that's for sure.
Timing kind of good too, was your son being named the captain, first captain of the D1
Yeah.
Penn State team.
Yeah, I mean, hockey has brought me, everything I have I owe to the game of hockey. And to be a dad, one of the hats that I've worn representing the game, to have two boys playing college hockey, one at UMass, and then my son Thomas, as you mentioned, at Penn State, and be their first captain in Division I hockey is certainly couldn't be more proud, and very exciting for all of us and for Hockey Valley now that they call it. So it's I'm just very proud of that.
Is there a particular career highlight that stands out more than the rest for you?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt winning a Stanley Cup with the Rangers in '94 was something that's why I played. That's why I played as long as I did. You don't realize how hard it is to win until you actually achieve it. I thought I knew what it was like at the highest level. I certainly learned a lot about myself and what it took. You know, I mean, individually, I mean, you know, playing for my hometown team in Chicago, being the first American-born native son to ever be drafted in the first round by his hometown team, as I was back in 1984. I mean, I just been given a lot of gifts, and I'm just really lucky in my whole career. And like I said, I've worn a lot of different hats. As a fan, as a player, as a coach, broadcaster, and a dad. So on any given day or night, I can have any of those hats on, because I love the game, and hockey has been mine and our family's life for sure.
And you talk about just how USA Hockey has changed since you were 18, and now with the possibility of the top 3 player here now, even from this area here.
Well, there is no doubt that the game has grown. There are more opportunities for our players, whether it's in non-traditional hockey markets or Detroit, Boston, Chicago, Minnesota. And I think that just speaks to the selling of the game. It's USA Hockey getting out there and giving more boys and girls an opportunity to play our game. We all know that the game is very expensive, and ice time is very expensive. There's no doubt that the numbers, to me, would be way higher if it was a little bit more cost-friendly, but that's just the reality of it. But it has grown so much since growing up in Chicago and learning how to play the game. So it couldn't be more proud, for sure.
In your dreams as a kid in Buffalo Grove, did you dream of being associated with the game? Well, I mean, having the playing career that you had is one thing, but being associated with the game as long as you've been, like you said, wearing so many hats, did you foresee that?
I'm proud to say his hockey is all I know. And I didn't know how to get to the National Hockey League, Mike. I just wanted to play, and then I was able to do that. And the game has given me so much that I've always wanted to get back to it, and to be able to do it as a broadcaster and the opportunities that I've gotten at NBC and in Chicago. I always knew that I wanted to be a part of it. I knew at the end of my career that I wanted to continue to stay involved in the game on a lot of different bases. And we're talking a lot about USA Hockey, is that I always lived under the belief of is that any time that Team USA would call, the answer is yes, no hesitation. When Brian Burke called me to go play in the '93 World Championships, and he asked me to be his captain, there was no hesitation. And to play in the 84, 87, and 91 Canada Cups, no hesitation. And to understand how important that is, to go and represent our country in the sporting world, to play, so it's not a hard decision, and when hockey's the only thing you know, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're a pretty emotional guy. You think you really get through this?
Probably not, Chris. Probably not. I cried when I signed my first contract with the Chicago Blackhawks back in 1984. I cried when my wife was walking down the aisle in August of '88. I cried when I played my last game in the National Hockey League. I cried when all my kids were born, and I'm sure tonight will be no different. And I know for sure I'll be crying when I'm 6 feet under, so there's no doubt that I'm sure at times I'll be a little choked up. If anybody knows me, or I mean, that's my personality. But it's all in appreciation and respect for everybody that's helped me along the way, for sure. Because, like I said, everything I have is because of hockey. I mean, I met my wife on an airplane. My two oldest boys were born in Toronto. I was traded from the Toronto Maple Leafs to Winnipeg Jets when my wife was given delivery to my son Thomas. I got called out of the delivery room, and they told me that I was traded. And I came back to the delivery room, and my wife decided that, I guess Thomas decided he didn't want to come into this world for a couple hours longer after I told her that we were moving. And my daughter was born in Stamford when I played for the Rangers, and my son Nicky was born in LA when I played for the Kings. So we have a plaque in our kitchen that says we interrupt this family for hockey. And it's 365 days a year. It's what it is, and to have my family here, my mother and father-in-law are here. Like I said, to be a part of this is something that this is very humbling.
Another doing a Comet hockey game, and they said, by the way, thanks to Groovy Bear for being your sponsor, and we couldn't figure what this meant. So I played the tape back, which they gave me the audio, and it was a beer made in Indiana called Groovy Beer. But I mean, this was from Sweden. We've had reaction from all over South America, soldiers in Afghanistan. It's you know, probably the thing that made it was my station. 50,000 big lots all over the world. So a lot of people heard me.
So how many headsets did you wear out over the years?
How many what?
Headsets or microphones?
A number of them, and equipment. You know, like when I first started, you couldn't go on a road game in a remote unless you had two great big suitcases at about 50 pounds apiece. Now a little box this big, you plug it in. Yeah, it has been a great deal of technology. That's why I'm still going. I'm so old I couldn't have carried the old stuff.
How big of an honor is this for you?
It's hard to tell. I mean, it just, I have thought about things, and I've had people who advocated for me to possibly get into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, which I would have considered, excuse me, an incredible honor. But the day that my phone rang, and I'm on the highway heading north out of Alabama, and my wife picked it up and said, "Bob, it's for you." When I answered the phone, It was Commissioner Bettman. And when he told me, I had to stop. Still,
Yeah.
same thing today. Unbelievable. Yep.
You called a championship last year in the CHL. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
Great experience.
Fortunately, with the new regime that came in, I've called a lot of championships. But last year was a sort of a reprieve from a bad time we had the year before in the Central League. And Al Sims has been our coach for many years. And Simmer now has a total of 5 championships, from the IHL to the Colonial League to the CHL. And as I told him as we got going this fall in training camp, Simmer, I'm going to have to grow one more hand if I'm going to take all the rings you get. And you get accustomed to winning. When I started in the early 50s, we were lucky to finish a year. I mean, we had some terrible teams because everybody was local. Nobody knew how to get into the hockey loop. And then finally, in 1957, excuse me, a fellow by the name of Ken Elliott was hired. He was from Western Canada, and he came in and he could see the disaster. It was an impending failure. So he made a deal with the owners. Give me a piece of the action and I will turn you around, which he did. And he was really the savior of hockey in Fort Wayne. And then grew from there to the point where as he got older, he just didn't feel that he had what it takes to keep driving and driving. So eventually the Franke family bought the team in the late 80s, and they have positively been the most incredible owners I've ever seen anywhere. I mean, we're now the 2nd overall team in minor hockey with attendance. We average 8,400 people a game. We sell out every opening night. We have huge crowds all the time. And we're so consistent and so steady. And with Al, who's done a great job of coaching, it's really fun to go and do games. I always look forward to it. It doesn't really work. As I say, I've never had a job in it. It's been wonderful.
I was lucky enough to call a game in your building last year. But do you have, as long as you've been doing this, do you have advice, you're starting like 4th with the Americans, do you have any advice for young broadcasters, guys who are just getting started, maybe coming out of college, and just what your words of wisdom would be to somebody who's just starting their career?
Well, I guess the only thing I can say is, whoever you are, be who you are. Whatever you see in your eyes, transmit it in your vocabulary, in whatever excitement that creates you to make it exciting. And if you can do that, be yourself and project yourself and have a love of it, which will show, you'll be all right. And everybody will buy into what you do by your sincerity. The minute you try to be something you're not, now tomorrow you got to remember, what did I do yesterday? And your inconsistency suddenly will kind of strip you. If you can do it and be yourself, at that point in time, you're either going to make it if people like you, or look for a good lunch bucket. But as long as you're yourself, you can do it because you have your own feelings and your own emotions.
Well, obviously, the one question people always ask, I'm sure you've had your opportunities over the years to move to different spots.
Yeah.
Why did you stand for it?
Well, I was also the sports director of Global Radio, which was a very good job. I didn't only do hockey. I did Big Ten football. I did Big Ten high school basketball. I did the Indianapolis 500 for 30-some-odd years. And I did also some Piston basketball when the Pistons were Zollner Pistons in Fort Wayne. And I pretty well run the gamut. Everything has been down the line. And I had a potpourri of things. Fort Wayne is a beautiful city to live in. Raised all the kids there. We've had the same home for 40-some years. And it has just been a comfort level. I never really kind of had an aim or a desire to be a star.
Even though you are.
I guess so. And it's been a great life. And that's kind of what it was all about. And there were only a couple of jobs that I really, really wanted, but they didn't pan out at the right time. The first one was with the Red Wings back in the late 60s, and of course I'm originally from Michigan. That would have been my dream job. but I had just accepted a new position with my company, and the very day I assumed the chair, they called and said, "We want you." Well, I worked for a great company, Westinghouse Broadcasting, and there's no way I was going to walk out the door on them. Now, the other one that I really wanted was the St. Louis Blues, and that was before Dan Kelly. They called and wanted me to be there on a Saturday, Sunday to do a series between the Blackhawks on Saturday and Montreal on Sunday. It was 4:45 on a Friday afternoon, and I'm walking out the door to do the Indiana High School Basketball Championships the next day, which I was committed to. I couldn't leave. And as of Monday or Tuesday the following week, the opportunity suddenly disappeared. And I thought, wow, you know, if that's the way they wanted me to do something for them, and I explained why I couldn't come, maybe I was better off to stay where I was. And I've never regretted it. I mean, I've had a great life in Fort Wayne, and look where I am tonight.
You got Mr. Pembroke here with you tonight.
Yes,
you guys
sir.
are very close.
Yeah.
Talk about having a year with you.
Well, Jerry's a 3-time cancer survivor. And he's here with his daughter, just got out of the hospital, and looks good. Same old guy. And he's just a tough guy. One of the best minor leaguers I ever saw. Belonged to the Ranger organization before he came to us. And it's as thrilling to have him here as it is for me to be here. Good stuff.
Bob,
What's the city of Dallas meant to you the last 2 decades you've been here?
It's meant the world to me. I think we really never felt in our heart of hearts that hockey would move down here, let alone thrive like it has, and turn into one of the more successful Southern Bell teams in the league. We really never, in hindsight now, it's been a real remarkable transition in the way the game's increased down here. But it's most proud of being a part of that when it first started, being at the ground level and watching it evolve, popularity increase. It's great to see and be a part of it.
Like you never dreamed that team moved from Minnesota back in '92 that all this would come. You'd be standing here tonight.
No, not in a million years. I think I was obviously young at the time and really couldn't put goals and things that I wanted to accomplish down on paper as of yet. I just wanted to get in the league and get drafted and then see where that all went. But to see what's happened over the last 22 years, moving Minneapolis down here, but like I said, it's been a real great experience. I think being so young helped an awful lot when we did move down here to educate a lot of fans and people down here. And, I was still going through some transition and growing with the game and along with the people here in this community in this town. So it's been a real relationship that I've loved. Fans and people, the city. I felt that the day I got off the plane here that this could be real exciting and unique at the same time.
About your time with different times playing for USA Hockey and what that's meant to you.
Oh God, it's been. I think competitively, you really didn't have an impact of what it was until I went to Moscow in '87 and played for the World Juniors. The impact internationally that we had and how people viewed American hockey players and that perception that they had about us that we were so young at the time that we wanted to change that. They thought about us as players and that we didn't belong at their level, so it took a long time. It took growth of hockey in the States everywhere to increase our numbers of kids that were playing the game in general, but we always felt in the back of our mind we wanted to prove a lot of countries and people wrong that we could play with them. It took a long time, and '80 was obviously a big impact year for a lot of those kids that were 10 or 11 at the time, but probably '96 for a lot of those kids that are in the NHL now that were part of Vancouver '02. That was a big monumental thing for them as well, and for a lot of us in '96 we felt that was for me, that was the best team, the best talented bunch of guys I've ever seen and played with. So that was hands down for me, and I'm probably for Lou, that was the GM there at the time. I always felt that was some of the best hockey I've ever seen.
Some of the best rivalries I've ever seen are the Canadians to the U.S. in rooms around the NHL. I mean, you guys, it's a friendly rivalry, but there's a real pride from each side.
Always so. Always when the World Juniors come around and the Olympics come around, there's always an internal kind of competitive nature that comes out in a lot of us. And I really didn't understand the passion that Canadians had until I moved up there in high school and saw how they viewed the game. It really kind of made me excited to be a part of hockey in general and to see how Canadians are, how passionate they are about it. It's their religion up there. To live up there for 3 years and go through school and to see that firsthand was something that took a while for me to understand. I just feel it as a fun game to play, but that's it's their livelihood. I mean, they live and breathe for hockey, and that kind of some way rubbed off with me.
You wrap your brain around this, Hall of Fame.
I don't know. It's been it was a great call to get, obviously, from Dave and Dave Fisher, Dave Ogren, but then they told me it was having it here. I think I was really kind of shocked, taken back that they wanted to pick Dallas to do it. So it meant a lot for them to pick this city and for me to feel that we've made this town the game popular enough for Texans and people down south to be recognized.
You look at the kids who are coming out of here, the Austin Smith, the Stephen Nathan, the Chris Jones, and you marvel at that sometimes. I know Seth Jones really didn't grow up here, but he's a product of this hockey area too.
Yeah, I mean, being friends, and I've known Popeye for a long time, and back when he was but it's, like you said, there's a lot of kids going to American colleges up north now and going the Canadian route. And with the growth of a lot of the U.S. hockey junior leagues that give that opportunity to maybe improve their game. So there's a lot of different things that have happened that open doors for kids.
Like for a young kid growing up in Michigan, you just talked about how your family, your parents influenced you and what it was like as a young boy.
Well, you'll probably hear that it was more of this whole hockey thing happened by accident for me. I was not a big fan of it. I was really into baseball and I loved that sport. But I had some issues as a kid, and trying to find some way to get some energy out and frustration. A friend of ours' family suggested I was going to play hockey. I was like, no, so we went skating one day, and my whole demeanor changed, my life, my attitude changed, and I was like, wanted to play. And so that's how that whole thing happened at age 7. So we've always, still to this day, thanked our friend that suggested us to get involved in hockey. But minor hockey in Michigan was one of the tops in Massachusetts, Illinois, and Minnesota, and time in Michigan. Little Caesars, obviously, the village family was very involved in minor hockey and gave us a great opportunity to travel, play down at the Joe as kids, and gave us great access to international as well. So the Olczyks have a big say in that for us as kids in Little Caesars.
So hockey was your real one?
It was. After that, we paid no more psychiatrists. So it worked out good, I guess.
You were young, but what did 1980 mean to you?
It was, pretty pivotal for a lot of things. I mean, politically, what was going on. Cold War, the issues. We were in a Silver Stick tournament in Fort Huron. The whole thing stopped, and everybody stopped and went to the lobby to watch the game. So it stopped life for a couple hours there. And we all were glued to the TV, and we saw an unbelievable upset at the making. But what we all didn't know for years later was they still had to win another game to win the gold. I mean, it was only a semifinal, but it was heroic victory, to say the least. So, and for American hockey, and for a lot of guys, for us, and we had a chance to play with a lot of these guys that were on that team, and pretty big impact for us as kids.
Mike, what are your memories of Herb Brooks in '02?
A lot of his speeches before the game were pretty funny. We enjoyed his humor, and I think a lot of it, you could tell he was a great motivator in the way he spoke and got excited about the game and internationally and what he meant, how he felt about American hockey and being American. Yeah, I mean, he'd come in for the games and looking like Kurt Russell and have the outfit on and the whole throwback suit and coat going, and he would just kind of rant and rave about us being Americans and, you know, what an opportunity and exciting time this would be for us to make an impact on the game and for ourselves. And then he'd walk out and we'd look at each other like, what's the game plan and what are we supposed to do and how are we supposed to beat the Russians and Canadians? And he just kind of left that up to us. So we kind of go through some plays and we talked about the power play, and Chelios would get up and talk about what we're going to do on the penalty kill, and we'd go meet him on the bench. And but it was a great experience, and he'd come in and say, we're playing the Russians. He'd say the same thing, leave again. Now it's the Canadians, the same thing. But it was he was a pretty passionate guy, and we loved it, and we had a ball with him. But '02 was, you know, I think along with '96 and that World Cup situation was a lot of fun being at home, being in a gold medal game with Herb Brooks as coach.
Mike, can you talk about Eddie Olczyk going into the hall here with you and just your friendship over there?
Just a class guy. I mean, he was one guy that I really kind of clung to in '90 and '91. We were part of the Canada Cup in Hamilton, and just his approach to the game and his professionalism, had a great sense of humor. Enjoyed the game. He was a lot of fun to be around, and so we've always had that connection since '91. And he was just a fun guy. We've always kept in touch since then, and since he's been out of the game and announcing and just catching up whenever we bump into each other. But he's been remarkable for the game on TV and what he's done with Doc and NBC, and you know he's our voice and face of USA Hockey for us, I feel.
He can get emotional. You can get a little emotional too. Is it just going to be a night ready to?
It could be a cry fest. So it's, you know, I think once we get going and mentioning a lot of things that people and situations and experiences that matter most to us, impacted our lives and gave us the opportunity to be here for today.
Mike, obviously a lot of awards and accolades throughout your career. Where does tonight rack up with all of those?
Well, you have to say it's right up there with, you know, being drafted. I think that was one of the goals as a kid, and one that I didn't know of and didn't understand until I was 16, 17, and you know, wanted to get drafted and be an American and go #1 and go to Minnesota and be a part of that. But over 23, 24 years later, you're sitting here and being recognized. It's great, and obviously the longevity and the impact of being moved down to Texas, getting a whole new demographic of fans and people, and growing the hockey down here as well. So there's a lot of things to be proud of, and some great players along the way that helped me get here too.
Mike, you had mentioned when the announcement was made, who all was going in, that you would have some interest in helping out USA Hockey. Has either one of y'all contacted one or the other? And if not, what kind of capacity would you want to?
Oh, it's hard to say what that would be. I think when the Olympics come around, that might be something that that might be brought up and talked about. But you know, those are every 4 years, so it's something that's not urgent on the list. I've always told you know, Dave or Greg to keep me in mind if anything comes up and they want me to be involved and help out in any way. I've always felt that they could contact me very easily.
You said at one time, if you were born in Windsor, they wouldn't be making that big of a deal about all your numbers. Did you kind of realize how important it was to be in the United States and how your numbers, I think you would always compare yourself to Sakic or somebody like that, but it really is important that what you did in the United States. I know it's only 10 miles difference or 2 miles difference, but it's an important 2 miles.
Yeah, I think we probably wouldn't be here if I was, obviously.
But I mean, you've become something a lot bigger than, you know, what you may have been.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of pride and pressure at the same time. I mean,
going to Minnesota, there's a real thrill of being first pick, but the reality is you're going to the worst team in the league, and you have to create a fan base and start over. So there was a lot of motivation to kind of make whatever situation was there, make it work. Then we had to do it over again when we got down here. So it was, it gave me opportunities to kind of reinvent myself as my game and as a person and my personality. So, yeah, I mean, those numbers, I don't know. Who knows what happens if I'm in a different situation, being asked to be a different player at some time when Pitch was involved here and gaining. I certainly wouldn't have changed that decision that those guys made for me and asked me to do and try to help the team be better rather than personal things. So those things, they always said, they'll come if you help us out on the other end. You'll always get those, and those things will happen, and we'll put you in situations to succeed as much as we can and get personnel around here to make the game easy for you. So I think for a lot of years they did that.
Turned out okay.
Yeah, it was all right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll start the questioning. This night, this Hall of Fame night for you, what does it all mean to you?
That's a very special night for the hockey family. The hockey family is international in scope, and in North America it's Canada and the U.S. And they have 3 Hall of Fame candidates that are outstanding in the hockey world, and I happen to be part of that on the basis of getting the Wayne Gretzky Award. And it's always nice to be recognized, but when you're recognized outside your country, it's even more special. And when the name of the award is Wayne Gretzky, that has a lot of meaning in Canada, because he's still the great one in all of the cities and boroughs right across the land. So it's very special.
The award is for growing the sport. Just talk a little bit about what you've seen in the growth of hockey in the U.S. over the last.
Well, you know, it's hard to measure precisely when things got better or how they improved. But I can tell you this, in Canada, it used to be Russia that set the standard that we had to play to be tops in the world. Over the last 10 to 15 years, that has all changed, and now it's the U.S. And I keep telling President Bob Nicholson of Hockey Canada, if more of those American blue chip players begin to pick our game over football and baseball, we're going to be in big trouble. And his answer to me has always been the same. He said, not big trouble, Murray. It's just going to cause us to dig deeper and do it better. And the standard of the game ever goes up, and that's a good thing.
And you know, you guys have developed that kind of rivalry between the two countries.
Yes, we have.
And I guess that has helped spur both to better heights.
Well, you know what I think they did, and we're very fortunate with some pretty good people, and they are quality people. They found the delicate balance between keeping the competition fierce and tenacious on the ice, while making the meetings in the boardroom cooperative and collaborative and working together type. And that's the key. If you can keep the competition on the ice and not compete in the boardrooms, you can get a lot done together. And that's what's happening now. Canada and the U.S. are working well together.
I found it amazing the players that you played with early in your career when you were on the ice, and to skate with Gordie Howe. I know Gordie was a special place in your heart with Gordie, to be able to play with him. Did you ever ask him for advice? Did he ever give you advice, or?
No, Gordie is the nicest, most easygoing guy you'd ever meet, and to me that was a very privileged time. I don't look at it as something that I earned, but I so cherish the fact that I was given the opportunity when it could have been a lot of other guys. And to play alongside with Gordie was just to be in his presence was special, and it's still that way. He's still the guy, I tell you. He plays this game in every way, the best that could be done. I know there was Bobby Orr after, and there were Gretzky came too, but in my day, Gordie was the standard. Gordie was the guy.
As the vice president for the IIHF, how important is it to maintain the other European countries at the same level or close to the same level?
We all have to work on that, but I think more importantly from our standpoint, North American federations have to make their presence felt more at the international ice hockey level, because we legitimize what they are, because without Canada and the U.S., they become a continental Europe regional operation. And we make them global, and we bring a lot to it. We make the competitions tougher. They like us there. The people like to see both our teams there. But the big thing is to get the others to play up to our standards. Now, Russia does it well. Czechs do it pretty well.
Slovak some, and the Scandinavian countries, Sweden and Finland, they have the talent. They just don't work as hard. But normally they can beat us on any given night. So the parity is pretty good in the international game. And I think the game, in many ways, is a better game because we get rid of all the extracurricular stuff. They play the game purely as hockey, and that's the way it should be.
What about this kind of the second tier here countries, and do you see some of those getting up to that level, or is it, do you think there's always going to be
They're trying, but in the economic climate we're living in, it's not easy because we've tried to go in there. In fact, I headed the committee that went in on the new building structures committee, and they always have their hand out because as much as they have it in their hearts to grow the game, they don't have the money to build the arenas. And if you only have one arena in the country, it's pretty tough to grow the game. And that's one of our biggest problems. Of course, the other one is worldwide. We're becoming an elitist sport because of the cost of the game. And that's something all of our federations really have to work on. We're only dealing with the upper half economic group. And when we look back over the history of our game, some of the best players have come from humble beginnings. Well, those players now are not getting the opportunity because the costs are too great. And that's one of the big challenges that faces right now.
Are you at all amazed, though, at how, just being here in Dallas, how the sport has grown in this area?
I am. It's my first visit here, and to walk into the building and see the hockey orientation of it all, to see the number of people who at this banquet tonight, I really wasn't anticipating that much. But it's a good hockey center, and guys like Mike Modano have made a difference. You know, it really has. It really shows. But it's a delightful experience. Our family, our hockey family, is not the biggest sports family, but I'll tell you, the quality of people is outstanding.
55 years ago, later this month, Maurice Richard became the first player in history to score 500 career goals. What can you tell me about Maurice Richard? What you remember about him, playing with him, skating against him?
The thing I remember most about Rocket is that the way to defend against him was to not wake him up. He played so many games, and if you went early and hit him hard, you'd wake him up, he'd get ferocious, those eyes would turn to fire, and then he'd come alive, because he could really score goals. He had that ability, and he was so intense when he did it. Very good hockey player from the blue line in. Not that much otherwise, but boy, he could, when he set his mind to score a goal, he would carry the whole team on his back to make it happen. And I've seen that happen a few times.
And Murray, did you ever have an opportunity to talk to and meet Herb Brooks? And if you did, what are your recollections of him?
You know, I never got the chance to talk to Herb Brooks, and I regret that because I never thought that he would leave us so early. But I was there in 1980. I watched that game, Do You Believe in Miracles? And the guy that I really liked was Craig Patrick. I thought he deserved more credit than he got. Now, that's not to say anything against Herb, because he really worked those guys and pulled the strings in the right way. He got an emotional performance that I don't know if they could ever match again. But it was something to see, and Herb did a job that year. Can't take anything away from that. It was wonderful.
Okay. Thank you, Murray.
Thank you very much.
Very good, guys.
Congratulations again.
Good talking to you. Yeah, enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're looking great, by the way.
Pardon?
Looking great, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's what's making it so exciting.
Does it make you reflect on your moments that a night like this makes you think of? Maybe it's that meeting with Eddie in '83.
Well, I think what comes to mind is when you're just walking, say, Eddie, and something comes up, or I get out of the elevator and ran into Patty LaFontaine, who was on that '96 team. He said, I wore my 96 ring tonight. You know, he's here because we had the diaper line in the Olympics that year with David Jensen and Eddie. And those are the things that are on the side that people don't see and feel. And just walking right from there when Mike was there, and Eddie, just the three of us, a couple of short comments at each other about things that we can all laugh about that nobody knows about. That's what makes the game so great, and what makes the relationships and the interaction such a great feeling. That's what comes to mind when things like this happen, when people come together and just can share moments that nobody else can appreciate.
You've been involved in this game a long time at the NCAA.
Be careful now.
NCAA and the NHL level. How much does it gratify you to see how far it's come?
Oh, there's no question where it's come. I'll certainly make a comment about my opinion of what happened. You know, the 60s and the 80s, you know, really American play was recognized. But after the '96 World Cup, the game, the American player is here. that's when they were recognized. And the only way you get recognized is when individuals have success in the game. On that roster, you had MVPs, you had Calder winners, you had Norris Trophy winners. You had everything. And Stanley Cups. You're just standing here tonight. Mike's got one, Betty's got one. You know, so we don't have to think like this and talk like that anymore. And, you know, the Americans are part of the game today as far as professional hockey, and it's no longer an individual country game. It's a world game. There are players that are coming from different countries, and their name, the only reason you might know that they're from different countries, their name might be spelled different. And some of them look like American names or Canadian names, and you really don't know because they've been playing in Canada. So we've got to be careful today. The Americans are here, if that's the word to say, here to stay in every way. I just come from New Jersey, and you know, when I went there were 50 high school teams. There's 107 now. You know, 91 when they started counting individual sort of registrations, there were 6,500. I checked on the numbers just because I might get asked questions. There was 17,800 last year. You know, I've got, you know, 2 granddaughters, 1 8, 1 7, and their mother played on the Olympic women's team in Nagano. That's my daughter-in-law. And I wouldn't let my daughter play ice hockey. My daughter Heidi, because I thought it was too dangerous at that time. And here I am, I have a 6 and an 8 out playing, and you know, we see how far the game has come, man and woman. So it's just great, but I don't think we have to think about where the Americans are, because listen, that was 96, here we are 212. That's some time ago. There's no distinguish. There you go.
Are all those fans Devils fans in? All those players Devils fans?
Well, remember it's New Jersey, so that goes up the road a little bit, so you got to be careful.
What are your memories of that 90?